And that overconfidence brings us to our next point in this topic, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Just what the fuck is the Dunning-Kruger effect? This is a psychology concept that explains a huge amount of what we see in the fitness influencer world. And once you understand it, you'll start seeing it everywhere in the fitness industry and any other industry online, really, because it explains why some of the loudest voices online are often the least fucking qualified. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where people with low knowledge or low skill in a subject, usually because they're new to it, dramatically overestimate their competence and believe themselves to be experts in said subject. To make it simple, the less someone knows about a subject, the more confident they usually are about it. And the more someone actually knows about it, the more cautious they tend to be. Because once you understand a subject deeply, you begin to realize just how complex it actually is. But when you only know a little bit, everything seems simple, black and white. You think you've cracked the code, that you can see the matrix. When in reality, you're not even unplugged yet because you're still rocking the blue pill. One way psychologists illustrate the Dunning-Kruger effect is with a curve. When someone first learns a little bit about a subject, their confidence skyrockets. They feel like they're an expert. This stage is sometimes called Mount Stupid. You read a few articles, watch a few YouTube videos, and suddenly you begin to feel like you know the entire system. You understand the entirety of the subject through and through. Nuance and subtlety is out of grasp because your limited knowledge makes it seem like it's black and white and you've got it all figured out. But then something happens. As you continue to learn more about the subject, you start discovering just how much you really don't know. Your confidence drops. You realize the topic is deeper than you thought. Eventually, with enough experience and knowledge, your confidence rises again, but this time it's based on actual understanding, and usually after years of training and study in the subject. And the fitness industry is the perfect environment for the Dunning-Kruger effect to thrive. Why? Because the barrier to entry is so fucking low. Someone can train for 6 months, see some beginner gains, and suddenly believe they've figured out the secret to training. I've seen it in town. Guys who've never spent a day in the gym their entire lives start working out for a month, get their noob gains, and then they start calling themselves personal trainers. And because social media rewards confidence and bold claims, those voices often spread faster than the cautious, nuanced voices of actual experts. Think about the kinds of statements you see online. This exercise is useless. Everyone should train this way. Science proves this method is the best. Those are absolute statements. And real coaches, real experts, they rarely speak in absolutes, if ever. Because everything has nuance and subtlety, everything. And the more experience you have coaching people, the more you realize that context matters. Just because something works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else. For instance, every time I train with my son and show him a workout, we usually have to adjust it to fit his physiology better because he's almost a foot taller than I am. He's a bigger boy. So what works for me form-wise doesn't always work for him. We've got to find and adjust it to see what works best for him and his build. You don't see nuance like that from influencers online. There's also a difference between information and experience. You can read about all the training theory you want. You can watch 100 videos about biomechanics, but until you start coaching real people with hundreds of different bodies, injuries, personalities, schedules, that's where understanding deepens. That's where you start to realize that the perfect program on paper doesn't always survive contact with real life, with real people. So for beginners, the Dunning-Kruger effect creates a massive problem. Because when you're new to fitness, it's hard to tell who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about. Confidence sounds like expertise. Someone who speaks with absolute certainty sounds credible. Oh, he's so sure of what he's saying, he must know what he's talking about. But certainty and accuracy are not the same fucking thing. In fact, in many cases, the most knowledgeable coaches sound the least dramatic, almost like they don't know what they're talking about. They'll say things like, it depends, or context matters. For some people, this works well because they understand it's not black and white for everybody. But that kind of nuance doesn't go viral, even though it is usually closer to the truth. So how do we shield ourselves from this Dunning-Kruger effect when we're learning about fitness online? Well, there's a few simple filters we can use that might help. First, look for people who explain why something works. Not just what to do, but why you're doing it. If they can connect the what with the why, that's usually a good indication they know what they're talking about. Usually. Second, pay attention to whether someone acknowledges limitations or uncertainty. Experts have no problem saying, "We're not quite sure," or "We're still learning about this." They'll almost never say, "It's like this," and nothing else. Thirdly, look for consistency. Someone who has coached people for years will usually emphasize the fundamentals over flashy gimmicks. The irony of the Dunning-Kruger effect is that the people most confident in their expertise are often the ones who know the fucking least. And the people who know the most are often the most careful with their claims. So when you see a fitness influencer making extreme statements with absolute confidence, it's worth pausing and asking, are they confident because they truly understand the subject, or because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about and they don't yet realize how complex it really is? Because when the algorithm rewards confidence over accuracy, then beginners are trying to figure out who to trust. It creates this perfect storm of misinformation.